Hello and welcome to this video on getting started with the Intel Galileo board. In this video for the project that I'm undertaking, we're going to be looking at Generation 1 boards. You can tell the difference between the Gen 1 and Gen 2s because the Gen 2s have printed Generation 2 there where it says Intel Galileo. And these are Generation 1 boards. Now that's quite significant because there's a power supply difference between the Generation 1 and Generation 2 boards. These Gen 1 boards take 5 volts, whereas the Gen 2 boards will take 12 volts. If you use a Gen 2 power supply on the Generation 1, it will blow it. So that's the first warning. You got to be very, very careful not to use a Generation 2 power supply on a Generation 1 board. Now, unlike the Arduino, the Galileo boards don't power and send data through the same USB port. They power off a round pin connector here. They do supply a USB cable, and the power brick that they've shipped me with this Galileo board is 2100 milliamp hours. So every power supply that's USB based will have an amperage rating on it, and some of the phone chargers can go from 800 milliamp hours up to 3000 milliamp hours, and sometimes they're just written in amps, so 1500 milliamps would be 1.5 amps. And Intel recommend that you use a charger no less than 1.5 amps and no more than 3 amps for the board. So most of your tablet chargers are going to be okay, but some of your phone chargers will be below the 1.5 amps, so you got to watch out for that as well. Now, the other warning Intel give you with the board is that you must connect the power and power it on before you plug the USB into the computer. So before you connect this to your PC, you need to plug in the power supply and get this powered on. Otherwise, it can damage the board. Now, I don't know how that actually occurs in practice, but that is warning, and I'm not going to risk the boards trying it out. Now, in terms of inputs and outputs, you'll see the Galileo has a lot more options versus the Arduino. You've got a standard RJ45 network port, so you can connect it to the internet that way. You've got a micro SD card slot here. You've got a standard mini PCI slot here, so for wireless cards or any standard mini PCI. And you've also got 2 USB interfaces. One that we're going to use to connect to the PC, which is the client interface, and the other is the USB host interface. So when this is actually hosting a USB device, but for the purposes of starting on the project, we're going to use the client one, and it's your standard USB mini B socket. It's the exact same as the one that's on nearly all phones these days, except for Apple, of course. The pin outs and pin ins then are actually the exact same shape and distance apart as the Arduino, so you can use any of the shields from the Arduino. Now, I've gone over the power requirements of the board, and the second most important thing I will tell you is to get the Arduino projects working on this board, you need to upgrade the firmware when you get it. So on the Intel site, there are 2 key downloads that you're going to need for working with the board. One is the firmware and driver update, and the other one is going to be the Intel's own version of Arduino. The version of Arduino you download off the Arduino site will not have support for the Galileo board. Intel have compiled their own version of the Arduino IDE, and you need to download that from the Intel site. I'll put links to both those downloads in the comments here on YouTube. And what you need to do, first thing you do is connect it up. If you're lucky, Windows will be able to pull the drivers off its online database. If not, you'll have to go into the device manager, and this comes up as a serial gadget. I'll put links to instructions on how to install it fully from there. And once it's installed, then it will get automatically assigned a COM port. And then when you're connecting the Arduino software to it, you'll have to select the Galileo Gen 1 and the COM port, and I'll give more details of that in the next video.